Καλησπέρα. Καλώς ήρθατε στο 4ο Φεστιβάλ Αστυνομικής Λογοτεχνίας. Δεν θα σας κουράσω, θέλω να πω μόνο 2 λόγια. Στον τοίχο δεξιά σας υπάρχει μία έκθεση φωτογραφίας, η οποία ταξίδεψε και μας ήρθε από την Άρτα. Είναι της φωτογραφικής ομάδας Photo Art. Είναι μια πολύ ωραία ιδέα. Θα ήθελα να τη δείτε μετά κάποια στιγμή. Θέλω να σας πω επίσης ότι ο φιλοξενούμενός μας μετά το τέλος της εκδήλωσης θα υπογράψει έξω στην έκθεση των βιβλίων. Θα παρακαλέσω πολύ, για να μην γίνει χαμός, να περνάτε πρώτα από το ταμείο και μετά να πηγαίνετε για υπογραφή, έτσι για να υπάρξει μία σειρά. Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Θα έχουμε σήμερα να μιλήσει με τον Κρίς Κάρτερ, τον Σπήλιο Λαμπρόπουλο και τον Γιάννη Κοροβέση, και αφού μας πούνε έτσι όλα αυτά τα ενδιαφέροντα και ωραία που έχουν να μας πούνε, θα καλέσουμε στη σκηνή τον κύριο Γρηγόρη Αζαριάδη και την κυρία Μιμή Φιλιππίδη να απευθύνουν και εκείνοι ως συγγραφείς κάποιες ερωτήσεις στον Κρίς Κάρτερ. Τα παιδιά θα μεταφράζουν παράλληλα για εσάς, ενώ θα μιλάνε με τον κύριο Κάρτερ στα αγγλικά. And hello, Chris. We welcome you here. It's a really big honor for us to have you here tonight. Your fans are all here, as you can see. They worship you. We worship you. And we are ready to listen everything you have to say. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Don't listen to everything I have to say. Don't do that.
Καλησπέρα σας. Όπως βλέπετε, εγώ και ο Γιάννης Κοροβέσης δεν πήραμε το memo για το dress code σήμερα, οπότε είμαστε λίγο λάθος. Θα προσπαθούμε να μεταφράζουμε χωρίς να διακόπτουμε τη ροή, όχι ερώτηση-απάντηση. Νομίζω λίγο πολύ περισσότεροι θα καταλαβαίνουν τους άλλους αυτά που θα λέγονται. Για όσους δεν είναι ήδη εξοικειωμένοι, ο Κρίς Κάρτερ έχει γράψει τελευταία 15 χρόνια που ασχολείται με τη συγγραφή 12 βιβλία. Και τα 12 έχουν τον ίδιο ήρωα, τον ντεντέκτιβ του Τμήματος Ανθρωποκτονιών του Los Angeles Police Department, τον Ρόμπερτ Χάντερ. Τα 10 από αυτά έχουν μεταφραστεί και κυκλοφορούν στη χώρα μας τα τελευταία 5 χρόνια από τις εκδόσεις Bell. Θα βγουν και τα άλλα 2. So, Chris, for the last 15 years, you have dedicated yourself to writing, and all your 12 novels have the same 2 stars. It's Robert Hunter and his associate, Carlos Garcia. Did you know all along from the first chapter of the first book that would be the guy that you would be stuck with for the next 15 years of your life? Is it the most long-standing relationship you ever had?
Yeah. Definitely the longest relationship I've ever had, that's for sure. No, that's the answer. Okay, this is a long story, so I'll go from the beginning. So, I never wanted to be a writer. If you guys ever saw any of my interviews on the internet, you probably heard the story 1,000 times. But I never wanted to be a writer. I never thought, all the writers I know, when they're kids, they are thinking about stories. They're like, that wasn't me. I don't even read very much. It's like, so you understand, in the last 3 years, I read 1 book. So I don't read. So I had a dream. Serious. I'm not joking. I had a dream about a story, and I told my girlfriend at the time. I mean, before I continue, okay, everybody understands what I'm saying in English, or do you want me to stop and translate every now and then? Is it good? Okay. So I told her the story, and she said, "Oh, that's a good story. You should write it." And I was like, "Okay." And I did. The problem was, it wasn't a crime story. It was a different story, completely different story. I don't know if you guys know a Brazilian author called Paulo Coelho. The story was like that. It was a story with a moral in the end, right? So I started writing this first chapter, and I thought, hold on. I never wanted to write a story, but if I'm going to write a story, I can probably think of a good crime story better than my dream, because my experience, I used to be a criminal behavior psychologist. I worked with the police in America many years, and I saw a lot of crime. So I could imagine a crime story better. So I was like, I'm going to write a crime story as well. So I did one chapter of my dream and one chapter of this crime story. I didn't have the story in my head. I only decided to write one chapter. So I say, okay, what's going to be a good opening chapter in a crime book, right? No story, no anything, just like an opening chapter that if I read it, I'm going to go, oh, this is good, I'm going to carry on reading. So I created a chapter out of nothing. That was the first chapter of the Crucifix Killer. Gave it to my girlfriend, and she was like, oh, I like the crime story. So I was like, okay, so I did chapter 2 and 3. It's still no story. I didn't have the story in my head. I just, the second chapter, the third chapter. And then they were like, this is very good. So I was like, okay, now I have to get a story. I didn't have a story. And that's how I wrote the Crucifix Killer. I did not have a story, and then I wrote it. I carry on because they said it was good. So I just put another chapter, then another chapter, another chapter. And then 8 months later, I had a book. And I was like, hey, I finished a book. Now, this is how you understand that I did not think the Hunter would go like this. On the first book, the original Crucifix Killer, Hunter dies in the end, right? So my original story, Hunter dies. So when I sent that out to my agent, the guy that became my agent, he read it, and he called me and said, I really like your story, but your ending is shit. And I was like, why? And he goes, well, because your detective dies. And he said, that doesn't work. So he told me, he said, have you thought about making this a series? And I was like, no. And he said, can I suggest you do? And I was, why? And he said, 2 reasons. One, a series is easier to sell to a publishing house, right? So he said, it's easier for me to sell your books if it's a series. 2, he said, I really like your detective, Hunter. And he said, and I think he can be a very good serious detective. And this is, my agent is a very well-known agent. He agents Lee Child and Martina Cole and John Connolly. So he's got like a lot of big names. So he said, look, I read a lot of manuscripts. And if I like your detective, it means that a lot of people are going to like your detective because that's his business. So he said, I suggest. So I went home and I changed the last 20 chapters in the Crucifix Killer. Right? So Robert was alive. So in answer to your question, no, I never thought that, after I wrote that dream thing 14 years ago, I'd be here 12 books later, still with the same detective. So, no.
Λοιπόν, θα συνοψίσω την απάντηση σε γρήγορα στη μετάφραση. Όχι. Αστεύομαι. Αυτό που μάθαμε είναι, που δεν ξέραμε, είναι ότι ευτυχώς παραλίγο γλιτώσουμε από έναν άλλον Πάολο Κοέλιο. Thank you. Didn't choose the path of Paulo Coelho. Thank you for that. Yes. Όπως είπε, έγραψε το πρώτο story που έγραψε ποτέ, το οποίο είναι ακυκλοφόρητο, ευτυχώς δυστυχώς, και είχε ένα ηθικό δίδαγμα, αλλά μετά σκέφτηκε παράλληλα να γράψει κάτι διαφορετικό. Ξεκίνησε λοιπόν το πρώτο κεφάλαιο μιας crime ιστορίας, το έδωσε στην τότε κοπέλα, το οποία του είπε, εσύ είναι πάρα πολύ ωραίο. Συνέχισε να γράφει ένα κεφάλαιο χωρίς να έχει καμία πλοκή στο μυαλό του. Άρα προφανώς και δεν είχε αποφασίσει ότι ο Ρόμπερτ Χάντερ θα ήταν κάποιος που θα μείνει. Έγραψε λοιπόν απλά το ένα κεφάλαιο μετά το άλλο, χωρίς να έχει προκαθορισμένη την πλοκή, και μάλιστα στο τέλος ο ντεντέκτιβ του σκοτώνεται. Όταν όμως το έδωσε στον ατζέντη του, αυτός του είπε ότι θα πρέπει αφενός να τον κρατήσει ζωντανό, αφετέρου να σκεφτεί ότι θα πρέπει να επαναληφθούν, να υπάρχουν sequels, να φτιάξει δηλαδή μία σειρά όπως συνηθίζεται αστυνομικά. Και ο λόγος ήταν διπλός, όπως του εξήγησε. Το ένα είναι ότι είναι πολύ πιο εύκολο να το πουλήσεις, γενικά γιατί το κοινό θέλει την επανάληψη να παρακολουθεί τις συνέχειες. Και το άλλο είναι επειδή ο ίδιος διαβάζει συνέχεια προσχέδια, demo, σενάρια και βιβλία. Και άρα προφανώς έχει ένα αυστηρό κριτήριο. Αν κατέληξε αυτός να συμπαθήσει τον Ρόμπερτ Χάντερ, το ίδιο θα συνέβαινε και με τον αναγνωστικό κοινό. Άρα το συμβούλευσε να τον κρατήσει ζωντανό και να έχουμε πολλαπλάσεις περιπέτειες. Όλα αυτά για το πρώτο βιβλίο, το οποίο στα ελληνικά ο τίτλος είναι «Ο δολοφόνος με το σημάδι του Σταυρού». Αυτά, και για να πιω λίγο νερό δίνω το μικρόφωνο στο Γιάννη.
Πάλι καλά που δεν θα μετάφραζες. Speaking of Robert Hunter, Most writers use the protagonist as their alter ego. Do you think that's the thing with you and Robert Hunter? And let's say, maybe in the audience, there's someone that hasn't read any of your books. How would you describe him, Robert Hunter?
No, he's not my outer ego. Bikini. Robert Hunter is good looking and intelligent. I'm not. That's not me. No. Okay. When you write a series, like every author I know that writes a series, you end up using a lot of yourself in the main character, for a few reasons. One, it's very easy for you. It's easier for you to write about what you know, about what you understand, right? So, I have insomnia. I struggle with insomnia most of my life. So Robert has insomnia. So when I talk about insomnia, I know what I'm talking about because I do it every day, you know. So at the beginning, it was just the insomnia, and my idea was, because my background is in criminal behavior psychology, I wanted to use criminal behavior psychology in the books, right? Because psychology, especially in crime, is very interesting. People find it very interesting, trying to understand the mind of a serial killer or a criminal. So I wanted to use that in the books. But I didn't want to do what a lot of authors do, which is you have your detective, and then you have a profiler, a second profiler, right? I'm lazy, so I was like, this is too much for me to write. So I was like, no. So I decided to put both of them in one person. So like me, I was like, he's an ex-criminal psychologist that became a detective. So those, at the beginning, those were the only two things that Hunter had on me, which was the insomnia and being a criminal psychologist, right? And then came the whiskey. Yeah. And that was a good thing. But then, so that was at the beginning. But now, you know, after 12 books, as the series goes along, I find myself putting more and more of myself into Hunter, especially on the latest book that is not out here yet. It's out in the UK, called Genesis. Genesis was a very difficult book for me to write because of the timing and everything, but there's a lot of my own pain in the book. There's a lot of my own darkness in the book. So at the beginning, so answering your question, at the beginning, Hunter was just a separate person. Like I said, when I write in the book, I didn't have a story. I wrote one chapter, and then they like it. I wrote 2 and 3, they like it, and I was like, okay, now I need to come up with a story and a detective. So I just made Hunter out of nothing. Like that, I was like, okay, we're gonna just make a detective. So it wasn't planned, you know. And because the book, at the ending, Hunter died, and then my agent said, no, change it, and I went and I changed 20 chapters. To me, the first book, The Crucifix Killer, is a mess. It's patched up. It's like there's one chapter over the other. So then every once in a while I get comments on Instagram or something. People read The Crucifix Killer and go, it's such a well-plotted book. I was like, no, it isn't. It's like, the book is a mess. It's like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just putting chapter after chapter. And then when people read it and they go, I love it. The story is so well thought of. I was like, no, it's not thought of at all. So I find it incredible. So something worked. I don't know what worked, but something worked. So at the beginning, Hunter was a different person, but the longer he goes, the more he starts looking, or the more I have become Hunter, or Hunter is becoming me. One of those, yes.
Είπε ότι δεν το είδε ποτέ ως alter ego του τον Ρόμπερτ Χάντερ, αλλά ξεκίνησε σιγά σιγά να του βάζει πράγματα που γνώριζε καλά, τέλος πάντων, και σιγά σιγά μάλλον ο Ρόμπερτ Χάντερ έγινε ο Chris Carter και ο Chris Carter έγινε ο Ρόμπερτ Χάντερ, οπότε κάπως έτσι εξελίχθηκε.
I suppose that you must know a musician called Jeff Buckley. You know, the singer-songwriter Jeff Buckley. Jeff Buckley, the son of Tim Buckley.
The guitarist.
No, he used to play guitar, but he was actually a singer. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, someone asked him, "What are your main influences?" And usually, when a musician is being asked that, he answers back, Van Morrison, let's say Rolling Stones, Beatles, or whatever. Okay. So he said, my main influences and inspirations are despair, love, agony, ecstasy, etc. So you mentioned earlier that you're not much of a reader. So if someone asks you what were the influences behind the concept of your books and what influenced you in order to start writing, would you just answer back some author names or other stuff like music or TV series or directors or movies?
I got none. I've been asked this a lot, you know, what are your influences? Because, again, because all the authors I know wanted to write from a very early age. So they were thinking stories, they read books of their favorite authors and stuff. I was not that person, you know. I did two things in Brazil when I was a little kid, right? I played football, right? And I played football. That's it. That's what I did, right? I didn't do anything else. So I had no influence. When I started writing, like I said this yesterday in Thessaloniki, and I say it a lot, that when I wrote The Crucifix Killer, right, or any of my books, still, I can tell you the story of the Crucifix Killer in 20 minutes. I think so, if I remember, right? And my problem was, how do I make 20 minutes go for 400 pages? That was my problem, because I had no experience. I was like, I don't know how to make a story that I can tell you in just a few minutes run out in 400, 500 pages. So that was my problem. But I have no influences. I just sat down and write. And I got asked this yesterday by, she was a girl, and she was writing her first book as well. I always get a lot of people that are just aspiring writers who are trying to write, and they ask me for my advice. And I always say, don't write, go do something else. It's a horrible profession. No, I'm sitting on the cable. I told her, I can only give the opinion that I have, which is what happened to me, right? I'm not very experienced because I only did it once and it worked, right? So I told her, I was like, it's your book, write your book. Don't write the book that your teacher is telling you to write, or your parents are telling you to write, or the story that your girlfriend, it's your story. Tell your story the way you want to tell the story. Forget about rules, right? If you study if you study creative writing, you're going to get a lot of rules, right? Rules, I always say, rules are sort of an enemy of creativity, because as soon as you have a rule, you have a box. And then you cannot get out of the box. You're writing something, you go, oh, I can't do it this way because the rule said I can't do it this way. And then you don't do it, right? I didn't know any of this when I was writing. And when I finished The Crucifix Killer, I gave it to a friend of mine. She was a teacher. And she loved it. And she read it. And she said, do you know what's incredible about the book? I was like, what? And she was like, you don't respect any rules. It's like, it's all over the place. Your book is just like, and it's fresh, it's refreshing to see somebody who doesn't care about all those rules that, you know, creative writing has created about you can't do this, you can't do that. So that's what I thought. I was like, it's your story. Tell your story. Listen to your gut and tell your story the way you want to tell your story. So I don't remember the question, because I talk too much.
Η ερώτηση ήταν, άπαξ και μας δήλωσε ότι δεν είναι ιδιαίτερα φανατικός της, ποιες είναι οι επιρροές του, γιατί προφανώς δεν μας έδινε την κλασική απάντηση, Raymond Chandler που λένε όλοι κτλ. Η απάντηση σε αυτό λοιπόν είναι ότι επειδή οι περισσότεροι συγγραφείς από μικροί αποφασίζουν ότι αυτό θέλουν να κάνουν και ξέρουν, μπαίνουν στη διαδικασία, διαβάζουν, έχουν σημεία αναφοράς. Ο ίδιος όμως μικρός στη Βραζιλία έκανε μόνο δύο πράγματα. Το ένα ήταν να παίζει ποδόσφαιρο και το άλλο ήταν επίσης να παίζει ποδόσφαιρο, όπως πολλοί άλλοι Βραζιλιάνοι. Άρα, επειδή το ξεκίνησε σχετικά αργά αυτό, δεν υπάρχουν οι κλασικές και οι τυπικές επιρροές στον τρόπο που τα σκέφτεται. Και μάλιστα τον ρώτησαν χθες στη Θεσσαλονίκη μια κοπέλα που ζήτησε και μια συμβουλή επειδή γράφει το πρώτο της βιβλίο, και αυτό που της απάντησε είναι ότι μην γράψεις το βιβλίο που περιμένουν κάποιοι άλλοι, μην ακολουθείς κανόνες. Αν σπουδάσεις δημιουργική γραφή, θα γεμίσεις με κανόνες, οι οποίοι κανόνες μεταφράζουν σε κουτάκια και τα κουτάκια σε περιορίζουν, γιατί μετά οτιδήποτε σκεφτείς κάτι πιο πρωτότυπο, θα αποκλίνει από το κουτάκι, θα πεις όχι, δεν μπορώ να το κάνω. Ο ίδιος λοιπόν αγνώρισε τους κανόνες γιατί απλούστατα δεν τους ήξερε, και αυτό είχε σαν αποτέλεσμα πολλές κριτικές, αρχικά ανεπίσημες από φίλους του, να είναι θετικές ότι ήταν κάτι πολύ φρέσκο και διαφορετικό από όλα τα υπόλοιπα, ακριβώς επειδή δεν ακολουθούσε τους συμβατικούς κανόνες που συνήθως χαρακτηρίζουν το είδος.
So I would like to ask you, there have been some concerns the past months, mostly due to the success of Jeffrey Dahmer's story. Have you watched it on Netflix? It's about you know, a guy, that kind of guy. So there have been some concerns, mostly due to the fact that maybe the series had been praising the main hero, the serial killer. So the concern said that maybe someone out there could get inspired to be a copycat killer. Okay. So would you consider that a thing when talking about literature and crime fiction, or maybe your books? We had seen Lucien, for example, in ways that could have been, I don't know how to say it, maybe, no. I think that maybe in a way you have been kind of praising him, in a way that he could outsmart the FBI, and you know, I don't want to spoiler, but we've seen a scene at your latest book, the scene with the bully. So maybe, yeah, I didn't say anything.
No, I don't remember.
Okay, okay.
No, I was, so you're saying that if I'm praising a killer, like lifting him up as to be a hero in a way?
Yeah, that could be a thing for someone out there to copycat, okay, to be a copycat killer.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that is the question.
Okay, good. Do it like this so I don't sit. Okay, so here we go. Oh, this is going to be good. Okay, yeah, I said I don't remember because I wrote Hunting Evil a few years ago, and I don't reread any of my books, right? So I don't remember anything. So I remember the main characters, but I don't remember much of the story. It's just the way I work. Okay, so the thing about copycat killers, that they don't exist, okay? I'm going to be truthful here right now, right? Does anybody ever heard of a real copycat killer, somebody that was copying somebody else's crime? They don't exist, right? Copycat was created to create a story in a book or in a film. There's not a single event in real life that I can remember or I have studied or you can try to find that a real crime has copied fiction. Somebody read something in the book or saw it in the film and went and did it that way. Maybe robberies, they do it, but not murder crimes, right? The thing about intelligent killers, like Lucien, and they don't exist either. It's like most of the murders out there are absolutely dumb, right? And serial killers, the majority of them don't plan their murders. It's like they follow an urge. When the urge kicks, they go after it, right? And they can't curb the urge. So they don't plan. They actually, the reason, okay, very quickly, the definition of a serial killer according to the FBI and the NCAVC is a killer who kills 3 or more people in 3 or more separate events with a gap in the middle. That gap can be a day, a month, a week, it doesn't matter, but it's got to be a gap, right? The main reason why a gap exists with serial killers is because they feel remorse, right? Unless they are a completely total sociopath or psychopath, which they exist, but they are hard to find. So they know that what they did is wrong, right? They know that killing somebody is wrong. So they, after killing, after the euphoria of the killing, after doing the urge, they will come down. It's like going to a party and partying, and then it comes down. When they come down, they know they've done it wrong. And you've probably seen this done in films as well. They don't want to do it again. They try to fight the urge, but the urge is too strong. So the urge will come back. It can come back in a week, it can come back in a month, it can come back in a year. They try to fight it a lot, right? But then the urge is too strong. One day they just need to be drunk a little bit or something, and they go after it. So I don't know any real life that copied a crime in fiction. But another thing that I'm going to say, I said that yesterday because I had a similar question. reality is way crazier than fiction, way crazier than fiction, right? Because I work with the police in the United States with serial crimes. When I just graduated from criminal psychology, and so let me very quickly. There's a series on Netflix or something called Mindhunters. Has anybody seen that? Okay, that shows the beginning of a part of the FBI called the NCAVC, which is National Center for Analysis of Violent Crimes, and the BAU, which is a Behavior Analysis Unit. That's where the profilers work, right? So that was stipulated in 1984 and finally created, signed it out by Ronald Reagan, the president at the time, in 1985, right? I graduated in 1985. So I graduated when criminal behavior was just beginning. It was just the first thing happening. So at that time, nobody really knew what criminal behavior psychology was. It was a brand new profession. They didn't know what criminal psychologists would do. So we were treated like detectives. We were taken to every crime scene in situ. And I don't have to explain what in situ is because I'm in Greece. So the victims were still on site. So we went to crime scenes just like detectives did, right? And I saw everything. And I'm going to explain why. Again, I worked in America, right? And America is in a different level when it comes to violent crimes, like a different level. Like I said yesterday, so you have crime, you have violent crime, you have ultra-violent crime, then you have 50 feet of shit, then you have America right there, right? America is a whole different ball game when it comes to violent crimes. Like I've seen stuff that it boggles your mind. Again, if you've seen some of my interviews, you heard this. My second crime scene, right? I was 20 years old. My second crime scene, somebody put a baby in a microwave and turned it on, right? In the United States. This is how America goes. It's crazy. So I've seen everything from dismemberment to decapitation to burn alive to cut in half to you name it, I've seen it, right? And I don't think there's any book that can create something that somebody out there hasn't already done it 20 times worse. So I don't think anybody's going to copy any of the crimes that in the books. And the thing about Jeffrey Dahmer as well, yes, I mean, there's people saying that they are making him a hero, not making him a hero, but he becomes the main character. So he becomes a protagonist on that. But then there are two things. One, they're trying to show that people like that exist on the planet, right? And they do. Those people exist. I remember there was a thing that happened in London, and there's a movement from the females, the women, wanted to teach men not to attack women because there was a woman got raped in the park or something like that, right? And they're saying, oh, it's not fair that it's not our problem, the women problem, it's the men, they are not well educated by their parents or something. And I told him, I was like, you're right, you know, of course things could be better, but you got to remember that these crazy people exist, right? Killers exist, rapists exist, pedophiles exist. There's nothing you can do that's going to stop these people from being on this planet. They exist. They are out there and they are dangerous, right? There's nothing you can do. So that's one problem with the Jeffrey Dahmer. They're trying to show that crazy exists. But two, it's Netflix. They're going to make money, people. It's a business. Remember about this. It's a business. So they made a story, and they did. You know, you get people talking, like you said, people talking, should they have done Jeffrey Dahmer, should they have done, but everybody watched, right? So it made them a lot of money. And to tell you the truth, as long as they make money, they don't care.
Αυτό που τον ρώτησα ήταν, του είπα ότι υπήρχαν κάποιες ανησυχίες, εκφράστηκαν κάποιες ανησυχίες, κυρίως μέσα από ορθογραφία, με αφορμή την επιτυχία του Jeffrey Dahmer Show στο Netflix, που σύμφωνα με αυτές τις ανησυχίες ηρωοποιούσαν με το να τον κάνουν πρωταγωνιστή έναν serial killer, και τον ρώτησα, έλεγαν αυτές οι ανησυχίες, ότι μπορεί όντως κάποιος να αποφασίσει να αντιγράψει αυτά που έκανε ο Τζέφρι Ντάμερ. Και τον ρώτησα αν μπορεί να συμβεί, αν πιστεύει ότι μπορεί να συμβεί κάτι παρόμοιο με την λογοτεχνία και συγκεκριμένα με το crime. Μου είπε ότι μας είπε μάλλον ότι η αληθινή ζωή στην πραγματικότητα είναι πολύ χειρότερη από την λογοτεχνία και γενικά από τη φαντασία, από το fiction. Τι άλλο είπε? Είπε πολλά βασικά, ναι. Στην πραγματικότητα οι serial killers, αυτό είναι πολύ ενδιαφέρον πιστεύω, βάσει αυτών που έμαθε και βάσει αυτών που μελέτησε, στην πραγματικότητα οι serial killers, όπως τουλάχιστον ταυτοποιούνται από το FBI, δηλαδή έχοντας αυτοί που έχουν κάνει πάνω από 3-4 φόνους, μεταξύ των φόνων υπάρχει ένα κενό, κατά τη διάρκεια του οποίου, αφού κοπάσει αυτή η παρότρινση που έχουν για να σκοτώσουν, αφού κοπάσει, νιώθουν μεταμέλεια, remorse, μεταμέλεια, μετανιώνουν τέλος πάντων. Και μετά, μέχρι να τους ξαναπιάσει αυτή η πρεμούρα, για να σκοτώσουν εκ νέου. Τι άλλο είπε εσύ, Σπήλιο? Είπε κάτι, εντάξει. Εντάξει. Ναι, γενικά δεν... είπε επίσης ότι δεν υπάρχει ούτε μία περίπτωση που κάποιος στην πραγματική ζωή να έχει αντιγράψει... δεν ξέρω αν το έχετε ψάξει. Να έχει αντιγράψει κάποιον, ας πούμε, από ένα βιβλίο, ναι, ή από μια ταινία.
Πρωτού περάσουμε στους εκλεκτούς καλεσμένους τώρα που έχουμε τον κύριο Αζαριάδη και την κυρία Φιλιππίδη, που έχουν γράψει και αυτοί crime stories αρκετά, 10 συνολικά, αν μετράω σωστά, και 2 τους συνδυαστικά, που ως συνάδελφοι θα κάνουν ίσως και πιο κύριες ερωτήσεις. Λίγο μόνο να σταθούμε στο καινούριο βιβλίο, οπότε θα πω και εγώ την ερώτηση στα ελληνικά, γιατί μετά θα την ξεχάσω και εγώ. Το γρίφο του κακού, στα αγγλικά Hunting Evil. Το κακό είναι, μας είπε ο ίδιος ότι δεν ξαναδιαβάζει τα βιβλία του, αλλά αυτό εκδόθηκε το 2019 στα αγγλικά, οπότε αυτός βρίσκεται ήδη στο νούμερο 12, εμείς είμαστε στο νούμερο 10, λίγο πίσω. Απλά είναι το πρώτο βιβλίο που συναντάμε ένα χαρακτήρα από προηγούμενο βιβλίο. Για την ακρίβεια, ο κακός, ο Λούσιεν Φόλτερ, είχε εμφανιστεί στο An Evil Mind, που στα ελληνικά ο τίτλος ήταν διαβολικός. Τον ξανασυναντάμε λοιπόν για πρώτη φορά. Αυτή είναι μια ιδιαιτερότητα. Και η δεύτερη είναι ότι για πρώτη φορά πάλι συναντάμε τοποθεσίες που δεν υπάρχουν στην πραγματικότητα. Στα 9 πρώτα βιβλία της σειράς, οτιδήποτε μας γράφει, κυρίως για την Καλιφόρνια που διαδραματίζονται τα περισσότερα, είναι μέρη, γειτονιές, μπαρ, εστιατόρια που υπάρχουν κανονικά. Μπορεί κάποιος να τα επισκεφτεί.
Συγγνώμη, νομίζω η κυρία Φιλιππίδη κάποια εξ αυτών τα γνωρίζει.
Ναι, γιατί έχει σπουδάσει κινηματογράφο στην Καλιφόρνια και στο Σαν Διέγκο, οπότε της είναι οικία. Άρα θα τον ρωτήσουμε γιατί για πρώτη φορά κάνει αυτές τις δύο αλλαγές. So, I already translated the question first. Okay. We will talk about the new book, but the new book for the Greek standards. Okay. So that would be Hunting Evil. Unfortunately for you, it was 4 years ago, so you may not remember everything. But it has something, at least it had something when you wrote it for the first time, that you haven't tried before in any other book of the series. First, we meet again a character from a previous book. I suppose one reason must be that he was shortlisted for the villain, Best Villain Award. Ο Λούσιεν Φόλτερ, ο κακός, είχε προταθεί για βραβείο καλύτερου κακού. Υπάρχουν και τέτοια βραβεία στην Αμερική. So but it's always nice to have a character of yours in a shortlist. And the second thing is that for the first time, and you said that in the first pages, that you refer to places and restaurants and that don't actually exist in California. So that's also a first for one of your books. What drove you to the decision to make these two new things in this book?
Okay. So so Lucian Falter. Okay. So when I wrote An Evil Mind, which is the first, guys read it, right? So when I wrote that book, it was very, very different from all the previous books, because An Evil Mind was book 6. So the 5 previous books was always Hunter chasing a serial killer in Los Angeles. So the serial killer was running around, Hunter was going after him. So there was the chase, there was finding out, and An Evil Mind was a completely different book. It starts with somebody getting arrested, and then he goes from there. So there is no chase There is no crime scene, you know, because one of the things I got a lot of comments, my crime scenes are very vivid, they're very, you know, gory or something. So there was no crime scenes in An Evil Mind. It was just a more psychological, conversational book. So I was very scared, because I was like, readers like what they like. They know they're going to get the chase, so they come after. So that was a very different book. So much so, there was the first book that got released in America was An Evil Mind. It wasn't the crucifixion, it was An Evil Mind. And when I sent the manuscript out, the editor in England loved it. The editor in America hated it with a vengeance. She just hated the book. So I was very scared, but the book came out and did very well in England, right? And the CEO of my publishing house in England, Simon & Schuster, came up to me. He bumped into me one day, and he goes, I love the last book. And he said, Lucian Falter has to come back. When the CEO of the publishing house that you're in says somebody's got to come back, he comes back. So pretty much, you know. So when he said that, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to start thinking of how I'm going to bring him back, because doing sequels are very difficult, right? Simply because if one book does well, and you write a sequel that doesn't do so well, a lot of people go, he shouldn't have done another story, you know, he destroyed it. So it's difficult. You have to do something that is just as good as the first one. So I was very scared. But I wrote the book, and so this one, Hunting Evil, is the first book ever that in England there's a scene that they cut. They said it's too violent. The first time in England that they said that, they said, it's too violent, Chris. They said, this one we're going to have to do. So I changed the chapter. I made it not very violent. And then when the book got sold to all the different countries like Greece and Germany and everything, they had the option to get either the chapter that came in the British version, which is the last down version, or the original chapter, which is the, you know, rock and roll, heavy metal kind of thing, like the very gory. And every country went for the heavy. So I think you guys are going to, but it's a very understandable chapter why they cut it in England. And the reason for the creating places that don't really exist is because I needed to do one scene that I needed the name of the place to match a riddle that is in the book, right? And I searched everywhere on Google to try to find something in LA, because obviously I lived in LA many years ago, so there are new bars now. So I was like, maybe there's a new bar that they created that has a similar name or something. Nothing. I looked everywhere, couldn't find anything. So then I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to make up a name here. And funny is that I did use a Greek word to create the name of the bar, but it's just because I needed something to match with a riddle that's in the book, that Lucian gives Hunter a riddle to find where the next act of violence is going to happen. And so that's the reason. I looked and looked, couldn't find it, so I made one up. So that's the story.
And actually inspired, the name of the bar inspired from Athens.
It's found in Greek. I don't know if it was from Athens.
You just don't remember.
I don't.
Because it is from Athens. Inspired.
I don't remember.
Πρέπει να πούμε το in situ δεν είναι ακριβώς ελληνική έκφραση, έτσι, αν δεν κάνω λάθος που το πάμε νωρίτερα, είναι λατινική, το in situ που είπε το inside. Στα γρήγορα η απάντηση είναι, γιατί επανήλθε ο κακός ο Λούσιαν Φόλτερ. Πολύ απλά γιατί ο CEO του εκδοτικού του οίκου στην Αγγλία του είπε, τον λάτρεψα αυτόν τον τύπο, πρέπει να τον ξαναφέρεις σε κάποιο βιβλίο. Οπότε όταν στο λέει ο CEO ενός τέτοιου οίκου δεν έχεις άλλη επιλογή. Παρόλο που δεν το ήθελε αρχικά, γιατί είναι δύσκολο να γράφει sequel και είναι δύσκολο γιατί αν δεν πετύχεις να επαναλάβεις την ατμόσφαιρα του πρώτου βιβλίου, όλοι θα σου πούνε κακός, δοκίμασε την ίδια φόρμουλα κτλ. Άρα έχεις ένα επιπρόσθετο εμπόδιο. Τον επανέφερε λοιπόν και όσον αφορά το γιατί χρησιμοποίησε για πρώτη φορά αναφορές σε μέρη που δεν υπάρχουν στην πραγματικότητα, ήθελε τον μπαρ όπου εκτελισόταν μια συγκεκριμένη σκηνή, το όνομά του να έχει σχέση με ένα γρίφο μέσα στο βιβλίο. Δεν θα σας αποκαλύψουμε περισσότερο για όσοι δεν το έχουν διαβάσει, μην δώσουμε spoiler. Ζούσε στο παρελθόν στο Λος Άντζελες, δεν ήξερε να υπάρχει τέτοιο μπαρ, αλλά ήλπιζε μέσα από το Google να έχει ανοίξει κάτι σχετικό πρόσφατα. Δεν είχε, οπότε το εφήβρε εκείνος. Ξέχασα κάτι άλλο, είπε. είπε και κάτι ακόμα που μου διέφυγε. Α, ναι. Και για πρώτη φορά επίσης, τρίτη πρωτιά για αυτό το βιβλίο, στην Αγγλία του έκοψαν ένα κεφάλαιο γιατί το βρήκανε υπερβολικά βίαιο, ακόμα για τα βρετανικά standards, και πλέον το βιβλίο υπάρχει στην ουσία σε 2 versions. Αν κατάλαβα καλά, το δικό μας είναι το original, το rock and roll, το heavy metal, που δεν υπάρχει καμία λογοκρισία. Οπότε τώρα... Θα κάνω και τα horns. Τώρα ο κύριος Αζαριάδης, που νομίζω έχει μετά και ένα event, ή η κυρία Φιλιππίδη που ως... εντάξει, θα ανέβει, έχει και το μικρόφωνο, έχει το μικρόφωνο εκεί.
Ναι, έχετε μικρόφωνο.
You can keep this.
Oh, we're doing questions from the crowd.
He will use this microphone so you can answer.
There's a question from your guys now. Be gentle, please. From him.
I will ask 3 questions I have for you, Chris. The first one is one that you love so much, is why do you think the crime novels are so popular and people love it so much?
Yeah, that's the question I get asked a lot. Well, it's simple. Especially novels about serial killers, right? The human mind is inquisitive by nature, right? Remember when you're a little kid, you're always asking your dad, why this, and why that, right? As you grow up, you're still curious. It's just a questions change, right? And all of us always want to understand something that we don't understand, right? The 3 most important questions on Earth that's been asked forever, right, is there a God? 2, is there life after death? 3, is there life outside this planet? Those are the 3 most important questions. These are questions that we all going to try to answer one day, but we can't, right? But people are very curious about what they don't understand. And getting somebody who can commit a crime very heinously, decapitate somebody, cut them in half, or do whatever they do, and not only that, go back and do it again and again and again. People want to understand. They want to know what's the reason why somebody's doing like that. Crime fiction gives you an answer in a way because, again, I'll tell the story again. The main reason the difference I figured out when I moved from working with criminal psychology to writing crime books. So the main difference in between reality and fiction, in my view, was that fiction has to make sense, but reality does not, right? And the reason for that is, when I write a story, I have to explain everything and close everything. So like the example I gave yesterday, if I create a killer who takes the heart out of the victim and then puts butterflies inside the victim, at the end of the book, I have to explain why the butterflies? What's the meaning of the butterflies? Why does he put butterflies inside, right? People want to understand that, but reality doesn't work like that. Reality, people will kill you for no reason. For a bottle of Budweiser, they will kill you for $2. They will do, like I said, one of the stories I always tell, when I was working, this guy, he had just, his girlfriend had a baby, the baby was crying, and you guys probably know this, but scientifically speaking, the sound of a baby crying is the most annoying sound to the human ear. So you can't, the reason, because it's nature, you can't, it's impossible for you to disregard the sound of a baby crying because it's so irritating, you gotta go for it. So the baby was crying, it couldn't stop it crying, he grabbed the baby and threw the baby out the window on the 10th floor. Right? Then the girlfriend went crazy. It was like, oh my God, he grabbed the girlfriend, threw the girlfriend out the window. On the 10th floor, so he killed the baby and the girlfriend, right? When the police kicked the door in his house, he was sitting watching a basketball game, eating cornflakes, you know, and he try to explain this, right? So that's, the reason is, in my view, right, every psychologist, every writer will give you their own opinion on this. My reason, I think, is because crime fiction gives you an answer to something that you would love to have answered, even though it's a fictional answer, but they get to the end of the book, and then when I explain why the butterfly is inside the chest, people go, ah, okay. It satisfies them in a way. So it satisfies the curiosity even though it's a false satisfaction because it comes from fiction, but it satisfies the curiosity. But people always want to know the reason why somebody can do something that I can't do at all. So, I think so.
Αυτό που ρώτησε ο κύριος Αζαριάδης είναι για ποιο λόγο είναι τόσο επιτυχημένο, ας πούμε, και τόσο αγαπητό το είδος του crime. Και είπε ότι αρχικά πιστεύει ότι εξορισμού το ανθρώπινο είδος έχει έτσι μια περιέργεια, είναι ερευνητικό, έχει ερευνητικό χαρακτήρα και θέλει να μαθαίνει στην προκειμένη περίπτωση για ποιο λόγο ένας άνθρωπος που μπαίνει στη διαδικασία να δολοφονήσει κάποιον άλλον και ειδικά ξανά και ξανά και ξανά, γιατί μπορεί να το κάνει. Στο crime, λοιπόν, έστω και φαντασιακά θα βρει αυτές τις απαντήσεις. Στην πραγματικότητα δεν θα το βρει. Και αυτό ίσως έχει σημασία ως απάντηση, το πώς διαφέρει τελικά η πραγματικότητα από το φαντασιακό, από τη φαντασία. Ότι στην πραγματικότητα υπάρχουν δολοφονίες, υπάρχουν εγκλήματα που δεν βγάζουν κανένα νόημα. Ενώ στο fiction ο συγγραφέας οφείλει να δώσει εξηγήσεις για οποιοδήποτε στοιχείο τοποθετήσει μέσα στο βιβλίο. Νομίζω δεν ξεχνάω κάτι, Σπήλιο.
So, let's proceed with the second. You have a great experience in psychology. So, when you create some character like Lucien, you have to go deep inside to describe this character in the book. Okay. So there is a period right in the book, you are inside the mind of such a guy. When you end the book, how easy for you to get out of this mind and not trying to kill your girlfriend, let's say?
How is it to get out of the mind or to get in? To get out or in? Both, okay. To get in is very easy. Look at me. No, it's not. It's not for me. It's not a problem. Simply because I worked with it, right? The difference for me is when I am writing, I know it's fiction. You know, I know that when I finish writing, I can close the book, close the door of my office, and it's finished. That's it. I don't have to worry about that. It's in reality, when I was working with the police, you know, you finish your day and you go home, and it's in your head because you know that this guy is out there killing people, and you have to find him somehow, right? On my case, it's fiction. I know that the guy doesn't exist. So I can go in, create the craziest crime I can create, and then when I finish the day, I close the computer, close the door of my office, and that's it. It's gone. It's like, I don't have to worry about it because it doesn't really exist. So it might sound that's difficult, but to me it's very easy because I make the distinction of when I used to work with it, and now it's just what I do now is not real. It's fiction. So.
Η ερώτηση ήταν κατά πόσο είναι εύκολο όταν φτιάξεις ένα διαβολικό χαρακτήρα όπως ο Λούσιεν Φόλτερ, μετά όταν κλείνεις τον υπολογιστή να βγεις από αυτό το μυαλό και να μην σου έχουν μείνει κατάλοιπα που σου βγάζουν περίεργες συμπεριφορές. Η απάντηση είναι ότι είναι πάρα πολύ εύκολο, είναι απολύτως φυσιολογικό, γιατί ξέρει εξ αρχής ότι είναι όλα δημιούργημα της φαντασίας του. Μιλάμε για κάτι που είναι fiction, το γράφει εξ αρχής στον υπολογιστή, μόλις κλείνει μένει εκεί, δεν το κουβαλάει μαζί του. Αντίθετα, αυτό που ήταν δύσκολο ήταν στην πραγματική ζωή, όταν δούλευε μαζί με την αστυνομία και τους ανθρώπους που γνώριζε, που έχει δηλώσει και σε άλλες συνεντεύξεις ότι δυστυχώς αυτά δεν ξέρει καν αν θα μπορέσει να τα ξεπεράσει, αλλά και όταν προσπαθούσαν να διαλευκάνουν εγκλήματα, που γυρνούσε σπίτι και ήξερε ότι κάποιος ικανός για κάτι πάρα πολύ βίαιο ήταν ακόμα ελεύθερος εκεί έξω. Αυτό είναι το πραγματικά δύσκολο και όχι όταν κάθεται ο ίδιος να φτιάξει κάτι from scratch ο δικό του υπολογιστή που ξέρει εξ αρχής του fiction.
Third and last question. I'll use one forbidden word for you. Inspiration.
Say that again.
One forbidden word for you called inspiration. You are inspired to write something. I have read some interviews from you that you don't believe in how much inspired could be a writer. So when you start writing a new book, what is it? It's professional, you have to write it, it's a contract, or it's an inspiration of a good idea that came to you overnight?
Okay, I always say this. I always say this in English. Like, inspiration is for amateurs. Once you write professionally, you don't have the luxury to wait for inspiration. It's like you have a contract, and if you don't fulfill your contract, your property house drops you. So you wake up and you go to work. That's it. You go in and do it. But for me, again, I said this on the interview yesterday, every author writes in their own way. If you write, you will find the way that you feel comfortable writing, and you're going to write. You write in the morning, you write only in the evening, you write in a coffee shop, write in the supermarket, write naked. It doesn't matter. You just write the way you feel comfortable, right? I don't have any notes. I don't take any notes. I don't have a board behind me like you see. I just come up with one-line idea, and I start writing, and that's it. And I just, like the way I did in my first book, right, that I said that I didn't know what I was doing, just put one chapter here, carry on doing. That's what I do until today, right? Simply because it worked the first time. It's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? So to me, I always say that, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I always write that, like, example, my second book, all I had to start writing, it was the idea of the murder. So sometimes it's the idea of the murder, sometimes it's the reason for the murder that gives me the idea for the story. So on book 2, the idea was a killer who kills his victims with their fear. So he finds out what you're scared of, and he kills you that way. So if you're scared of spiders, he kills you with spiders. If you're scared of height, he throws you from the top of the building. That was the idea. And I sat down and started writing. For book 3, I had nothing. All I had was the murder itself, right? Which is, to me, the most gruesome murder I have in my books, is book 3. And I was here in Greece. I was in one of the islands. I think it was Zakynthos I was. And I was with my girlfriend at the time. This is a long time ago. And out of the beach, and I just had an idea. And the murder is, I don't know if you guys read book 3, but the killer inserts something inside the women, and then he sews it shut. And I was on the beach with my girlfriend, and I was like, I had an idea for a book. And she was like, tell me. And I told her the idea right there on the beach. And she just looks at me and she goes, wow. And she was like, okay, what gave you the idea? Was it the sun, the beach, me? What the hell? So, and that was it. That's all I had. I didn't have the killer. I didn't have the story. I didn't have the plot. I just had, that's a good kill. That's a crazy kill. And that's why I write it. So I don't need that much inspiration. I just need something that I think, oh, wow, I can make this work. So that's how I write. So yeah, I don't deal with the inspiration bit. I just need one thing that makes me want to write.
Η ερώτηση ήταν, θα το χρησιμοποιήσει, είπε ο κ. Αζαριάδης, μια απαγορευμένη λέξη, την έμπνευση. Τι τελικά σε οδηγεί να γράψεις, και μας απάντησε ο Κρίς ότι συχνά λέει ότι η έμπνευση είναι για τους ερασιτέχνες, από την άποψη ότι άπαξ υπογράψεις ένα επαγγελματικό συμβόλαιο, πρέπει να μπορείς να παραδίδεις. Είναι μια δουλειά, ξυπνάς κάθε πρωί και την κάνεις, πρέπει να μπορείς να ολοκληρώνεις κάτι για να παραδίδεις. Έχεις κάνει μια συμφωνία. Ο ίδιος μας θύμισε ότι το είχε πει εξ αρχής, ποτέ δεν είχε κάποια πλοκή, κάποιο πλάνο να σημειώσει, δεν έχει κάποιο board πίσω να κολλάει χαρτάκια, δεν έχει τίποτα σημειώσεις. Ξεκινάει απλά να γράφει. Αφού λοιπόν απέδωσε την πρώτη φορά, δεν βρίσκει κανένα λόγο να κάνει κάτι διαφορετικό στα επόμενα. Χρειάζεται μόνο μια μικρή αφορμή, κάτι να σκεφτεί για να ξέρει ότι γύρω από αυτό θα αναπτύξει την υπόθεση. Στον εκτελεστή, στο execution, το δεύτερο βιβλίο, είχε το κόνσεπτ ότι ο δολοφόνος σε σκότωνε με αυτό με το οποίο φοβόσουν. Αν φοβόσουν τους αράχνες, σκότωνε με αράχνες. Αν φοβόσουν τα ύψη, σε πέταγε από ψηλά και το καθεξής. Ενώ στο τρίτο βιβλίο, το Night Stalker, το νυχτερινό διώκτη, το κόνσεπτ του ήρθε σε ένα ελληνικό νησί, νομίζει ήταν η Κύθνος, πάλι με το κορίτσι του τότε. Ποια είπε? Ζάκυνθος είπε. Έχασα το Ζα. Πάλι με την κοπέλα του, δεν ξέρω αν είναι η ίδια που ανέφερε πριν, γιατί έχει περάσει καιρός, λέει. Και ενώ ήταν στην παραλία, φωτεινά, όλα τέλεια, του ήρθε η σύλληψη. Κάποιος, πάλι μην κάνουμε spoilers, βάζει κάτι μέσα σε γυναικεία σώματα και μετά τα ράβει, τα κλείνει, και το είπε στην κοπέλα του. Μου ήρθε φοβερή έμπνευση, η οποία σοκαρίστηκε ότι τι ακριβώς από το τοπίο εδώ και τα surroundings σου έδωσε αυτή την ιδέα, μήπως σου την έδωσα εγώ. Άρα Ευχαριστούμε πολύ τον κύριο Αζαριάδη που είχε 3 ερωτήσεις. Έχετε άλλη μία?
Yes, I have one last question, Chris, which is a technical kind of view. Lucian Folter is for me one of the extremely lovable serial killers I have written. I think the psychological profiling is exceptional. One question only. If we follow the theory from Ressler and Douglas, you know the story, the serial killers, they realize they have a monster inside. So they want, even themselves, someone to stop them. Please stop the monster. I don't want to kill more, please. Let's find some good detective like Clint Eastwood that will stop the killer. I didn't see this in Lucian. Lucian is, until the end of the book, he does not have any such kind of desire. I don't want to stop me. I want to kill to the end. Is this something that is different from the old classical theory for serial killers?
Well, it's very difficult to say that they all want that because everybody's an individual. Everyone is different, right? And no one really knows inside them how they are feeling. So yeah, some of them, like I said, they know that what they're doing is wrong, right? They can't stop it. They know what they're doing is wrong. I know cases of people who were pedophiles and they knew that they couldn't stop and they castrated themselves. They actually went to the doctor and asked the doctor to castrate themselves because they said, there's the only way I can stop. I cannot stop the urge. When the urge comes, I go after. So it is very hard to know the ones who want to stop it or not. On the Lucian thing, like I said, I was so surprised that people liked the character the way he did. And you asked me outside, like I said, a lot of women fell in love with Lucian, which is surprising because one, he's fictional, and I get that about Hunter as well. You know, like I got people saying I'm in love with Hunter. I was like, good, but he doesn't exist. But fine. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say, you know, if people, they really want to stop. Some of them do. Some of them know that what they're doing is wrong. But some of them are completely, they just want to live their lives and they have the urge and then they do what they do and they forget about it. They literally forget that they have killed people. So every case is an individual case. I mean, I have never seen 2 serial killer cases or 2 murder cases that are identical. But yeah.
To clarify things, I'm not sure whether you were talking about real life or fiction here. Okay. Ο κύριος Αζαριάδης ρώτησε πώς η περίπτωση του Lucian Folter καταφέρνει να ξεφεύγει από το κλασικό μοτίβο των serial killers. Το οποίο ποιο είναι? Ότι οι περισσότεροι αισθάνονται ότι υπάρχει ένα τέρας μέσα τους και πρέπει, έστω υποσυνείδητα το σκέφτονται, πρέπει να βρεθεί κάποιος αντάξιος τους για να το σταματήσει αυτό το τέρας. Σωστά? Αντιθέτως, ο Lucian Folter μέχρι την τελευταία στιγμή, μέχρι το τέλος του βιβλίου, συνεχίζει με μανία και ορμή και, έτσι, και αμετανόητα να σκοτώνει και να σκοτώνει και να σκοτώνει. Και τον ρώτησε πώς έγινε τέλος πάντων, πώς δημιουργήθηκε τέλος πάντων ο Lucian Folter. Πραγματικά δεν κατάλαβα αν μιλούσε για την πραγματικότητα ή για το fiction. Αλλά είπε ότι πολλές φορές υπάρχουν πολλές περιπτώσεις serial killers που αντιλαμβάνονται ότι αυτό που κάνουν δεν είναι σωστό, το πούμε έτσι ευγενικά. Ακόμη και παιδόφιλων, λέει, που πήγανε οι ίδιοι στο γιατρό και ζήτησαν να τους ευνουχίσει, μάλλον, να τους, ναι. Αλλά υπάρχουν διάφορες περιπτώσεις. Τι άλλο είπε? Ναι, ότι γενικά δεν υπάρχουν μοτίβα, δεν υπάρχουν κίνητρα, δεν υπάρχουν πανομοιότυπες περιπτώσεις. That's it. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ, κυρία Αζαριάδη. You are excused, ναι. Αγαπητή, κυρία Φιλιππίδη.
Okay. Hi. I was very impressed by the pacing of the first book. in Crucifix Killer and in Hunting Evil. The pacing picks up the climax till the very end.
The pace. The pace.
Okay. And even though in the last one, in Hunting Evil, the pace doesn't slow down. There is more emotion, the way you have your characters connected. You give more insight, more information about your characters. And I wanted to ask you, what dictates the rhythm of the book? Is it the need of a character or the need of the author to manipulate the reader?
Oh, okay. So, thank you to say about the pace. I have this editor in England, and she said, which was very surprised. She was doing a very big interview as well, and then she did say, she said, I don't know anyone that can do pace like Chris Carter, because she thinks that the paces on my book are very, very fast, and which is, to me, is incredible. But I have a funny story because I met her. She's not my editor anymore. She moved to a different publishing house, and she had a baby now, but we are still very good friends. And I bumped into her on one of these days, and she had the baby and everything, and me being me, like trying to be, you know, I went and gave the baby a kiss on the head, right? I realized way too late that she was breastfeeding the baby. I didn't kiss the baby's head. Okay? It was not good. That's seriously bad. Anyway, going back. Yeah, can you imagine? Even the baby was like, what the hell? But yeah, anyway.
So what dictates the pace?
I don't know. It's like when I write, again, I don't have notes. I don't have anything in my head. I just keep on telling the story the way I want to tell. Again, I write it the way I want to read a book, right? So there's a few things that are secret, but for example, every chapter in my book has to add something to the story. I can't have a chapter that's just nothing, right? And that is the reason Hunter does not have a wife, right? Because I used to, when I read books, I don't read them very much, but when I read books and the detective is married, there's always a chapter that the detective comes home and then he has a fight with his wife. And then the kid has a problem in school because the kid was smoking marijuana. And I hate, it's like, no, just give me the story. It's like, just give me the story. And I've always been like this, right? It's the same thing. I was talking to Vasilis today about a series, and I was like, I only watch series that has one series, right? This thing about watching 2 months of story and then break and then wait 8 months for the second part and go, no, give me the goddamn story and finish the story. So when I write a book that I want to read, right? So to me, I like books that just tells you the story, right? You don't do a lot of family life and other. We know what real life is. You know, we all go to school, we all go to work. You know. So no, just give me the story. So the pace, I think, in my books comes simply because I want that. I just want to give the reader the story. I don't want to, you know, fill the story. And my books are thick, you know. So I think that's what dictates the pace to me, is because I like books that are like that. I like books that are fast, that don't go around the block.
Η ερώτηση ήταν, αναγνώρισε κυρία Φιλιππίδη ότι έχει πολύ έντονο και ταχύ ρυθμό, ο οποίος ποτέ δεν κάνει κοιλιά, και το άλλο θετικό είναι η πολύ σωστή κλιμάκωση. Τον ρώτησε λοιπόν αν αυτό που υπαγορεύει το ρυθμό, ώστε ποτέ να μην χαλαρώνει, είναι ο ίδιος όπως το έχει στο μυαλό του, ή αν οι χαρακτήρες που χτίζει δηλαδή, ή αν έχει στο κατά νου ότι πρέπει να κρατάει σε γρήγορη στον αναγνώστη. Η απάντηση είναι ότι μια υπεύθυνη εκδοτικό του οίκου η οποία έχει πολύ φιλική σχέση, του έχει πει ότι δεν ξέρω κανέναν άλλο συγγραφέα που να διατηρεί τόσο έντονο ρυθμό όσο ο Chris Carter. Παρένθεση εδώ γιατί θα είναι άσχετο αυτό με το ρυθμό. Να μην το μεταφράσω αυτό με το παιδί και το στήθος. Οκ. Ήθελα να κάνω και την κίνηση. Λοιπόν, μας είπε ότι...
Μας γράφουνε γι' αυτό.
Ναι, μας είπε ότι δεν διαβάζει πάρα πολύ, αλλά όταν διαβάζει τα περισσότερα, ακόμα και τα αστυνομικά μυθιστορήματα, έχουν έναν ντεντέκτιβ ο οποίος γυρίζει σπίτι σε μια οικογενειακή ζωή, όπου εκεί λίγο θα μιλήσει με τη γυναίκα του, θα του γκρινιάξει για κάτι, θα του αναφέρουν ένα πρόβλημα του παιδιού στο σχολείο που κάποιος είπε ότι τον συνέλαβαν να καπνίζει μαριχουάνα, άρα έχει προβλήματα κτλ. Αυτά τα θεωρεί πάρα πολύ βαρετά, γιατί θέλει απλά να πηγαίνουμε από το ένα κεφάλαιο στο άλλο και να παρακολουθούμε την εξέλιξη της ιστορίας. Γι' αυτό ο detective του δεν είναι παντρεμένος, δεν έχει οικογενειακή ζωή. Θέλει κάθε κεφάλαιο να προσθέτει κάτι στην πλοκή του βιβλίου και όχι να εξετάζει κάτι περιφερειακό. Το επιχείρημα εδώ είναι ότι όλοι ξέρουμε την αληθινή ζωή. Ζούμε σε σπίτια, έχουμε οικογένειες, έχουμε πάει σχολείο, δουλεύουμε, άρα όλα αυτά τα ξέρουμε και τα βιώνουμε καθημερινά. Αυτό που θέλει ο άλλος όταν διαβάζει κάτι και αυτό που θέλει και ο ίδιος όταν διαβάζει κάτι και όταν βλέπει μια σειρά στην τηλεόραση είναι κατευθείαν να εξυπηρετεί αυτό που βλέπει, αυτό που θα ακολουθήσει και την εξέλιξη της πλοκής και όχι κάτι άλλο περιφερειακό. Νομίζω αυτή είναι η ουσία.
Και παρόλα αυτά λέει δεν είναι και μικρά τα βιβλία του, έτσι. Άρα έχουν ζουμί.
But you tricked me. I thought you had designed very carefully the pacing. Anyway, I want to ask you, do you follow real crime stories in the U.S.? Do you know of the murders of the 4 students in Idaho?
Which murder?
The 4 students in Idaho.
No, okay. No, I don't follow crime anymore. It's just too much.
Okay.
Especially when you're talking about America. So no, I don't follow, but I'm pretty sure it's something crazy. Because I told you, America is on a different level.
Right, because the alleged killer is a guy who has a PhD in criminal justice, and he had studied forensic psychology with Catherine Ramsland.
Really?
Yeah.
Like.
That was the killer.
The alleged killer. Okay. He's gonna go to court next week.
I mean, there's so much stuff everywhere. You know, I was just traveling and where I was before, which is I was in North Macedonia, and in North Macedonia everybody was talking about a crime that just happened in Serbia, which was the kid that walked into the school and did what they do in America. Yes. And so they were asking for my opinion on that kind of stuff. It's like, these things happen all over, right? Okay, so the school things are very American stuff simply because America's got the gun law, which is never going to change. But no, I stopped. I mean, sometimes if I get a news about a crime and I think it's interesting, I just read about it to find out what happened. But I hadn't heard of that one, no. But I'm not surprised.
It took 6 weeks to be arrested for the guy, but I was very curious because we were all guessing who could it be. It was students in the same house off campus, and he was a student in Washington State, living 10 minutes away, but he was arrested 6 weeks later. That my question would be if in between you had any guesses.
Oh, no, yeah. I didn't see. But, sorry, it just shows that things are starting to move fast. I think, just going back to a question when you talk about the intelligence killer or something, I think the most intelligent one that I remember, okay, and this guy really was intelligent, but he ended up getting caught, was the Unabomber. Right? But he was a genius. He really was a proper genius. His IQ was way over. But I don't know if you guys, there's a series as well, but he was really, really careful. He would travel like 4 states, like for 11 hours in a bus just to post something to the police, so they wouldn't track him down. So he was extremely intelligent, and he got caught. But it took the FBI like 16 years or 20 years to catch him, right? Or was the longest manhunt in the history. But he got caught. So they can get caught, but he's the only one that I remember that's the most intelligent. But obviously this guy, he still got caught, you know. But yeah. I didn't follow it, but now I'm actually, I'll take a look and see what it is.
Αυτό που ρώτησε η κυρία Φιλιππίδη είναι αν παρακολουθεί περιπτώσεις δολοφονιών στην πραγματική ζωή και αν ουσιαστικά εκφράζει έστω στον εαυτό του τα συμπεράσματά του, έτσι, για το ποιος μπορεί να είναι ο δολοφόνος και το καθεξής, και έφερε και ένα παράδειγμα για τους 4 μαθητές, σπουδαστές, τι ήταν, στο Αϊντάχο, και για τον δολοφόνο τον οποίο τον πιάσανε μετά από 6 εβδομάδες. Ο οποίος είχε διδακτορικό στην ψυχολογία και στην εγκληματική, συμπεριφορική, τέλος πάντων, εγκληματολογία. Και είπε ότι ο Chris Carter είπε ότι τον ρωτάνε πολύ συχνά, τον ρώτησαν πρόσφατα και στη Βόρεια Μακεδονία για την περίπτωση των μαζικών δολοφονιών στη Σερβία. Ναι, στην πραγματικότητα τι είπε, δεν μπορούν να ταυτιστούν, δεν βγάζουν πολύ νόημα και οκ, ναι, είναι πολύ ευρύ το... Έχετε κάποια ερώτηση,
αν υπάρχουν
το
ερωτήσεις
κοινό?
από το κοινό, γιατί δεν ξέρω πόση ώρα έχουμε. Δεν έχουμε πολλή ώρα. Όποιος θέλει να ρωτήσει κάτι...
Εμείς είχαμε κάποιες ερωτήσεις πάντως...
Πιο pop κουλτούρας.
Ναι, σχετικά με τη μουσική. We had some questions about your relationship with music.
Oh, damn. Okay.
But then I had one idea. I don't know, maybe Bell Publishing House and you get to collaborate, maybe to make a Spotify music list inspired by your books. I don't know if I got you into trouble, but that would be interesting, mostly because of your relationship with music.
Didn't you tell me that apparently there's an author that does that every book that he finishes, he creates a sort of like a playlist on Spotify. Who? John Connolly, yeah, actually he's signed by my agent. So John Connolly does that. Every book he finishes, he creates a soundtrack for his book. I never thought about it, but it is a good idea. Maybe I'll do some. But yeah, it is a good idea. We can do it.
Έχουμε κάποια ερώτηση από το κοινό? Μιλήστε τώρα, αλλιώς να σοπάσετε για πάντα.
Σηκώθηκε ένα χέρι.
Ο serial killer τελικά γεννιέται ή γίνεται?
The question is, is someone actually born, is someone being born a serial killer, or he ends up being one because something altered in his life?
Both. The answer is that. Yes, you can be born with predisposition to commit crimes, a predisposition to be more evil, right? But it's not typical. And let me give an example. Can a person be born blind? Yes. Is that normal? No. Can a person be born with 4 fingers instead of 5? Yes. Is that normal? No. Can a person be born with an unbalanced part of the brain or a chemical unbalance in your brain that makes you more violent? Yes. Is it normal? No.
So, being evil, do you consider being evil to be a physical trait?
No. You can learn to be evil. But there are cases, there are proven cases of the predisposition for murder. Right? And there's one case, I actually will say this in the book, the guy, he got sick and he became evil. I forgot the whole story, but he was the shooter in Texas. He went up on the bell tower of the university in Houston and he shot, I think he killed 12 and he injured like 22, right? But he left a letter. And before doing that, he killed his mother and he killed his wife, right? But he left a letter. So when the police shot him dead, because the police got there and shot him dead, they found the letter, and the letter said, I don't know what's happening. I love my mother. I love my wife. But lately, I've been having these crazy headaches, right? And I think there's something wrong with my head. So please, can you take a look? Because he knew he would die, right? And they operated on him, and they found a tumor growing on his amygdala, right? That was pressing on another part of his brain, right? So that tumor, because it grew in a certain part of the brain, it did something in his brain that made him want to kill people, right? So this is a physical trait that happened later in life. He was graduating in architecture. I forgot his name now. So both, you can do both. Like you can be born with the predisposition, or you can become evil by the way you live.
Η απάντηση είναι και τα δύο μπορεί να γίνουν και να γεννηθείς, γιατί κανείς δεν είναι τάμπουλα ράζα, υπάρχει προδιάθεση επιστημονικά, αυτό είναι καταγεγραμμένο, αλλά μπορεί και στην πορεία να συμβεί κάτι μέχρι και καθαρά θέματα υγείας. Μας έδωσε ένα παράδειγμα ενός τύπου που είχε ανέβει στο Τέξας ένα ύψωμα και πυροβολούσε, ο οποίος διαπιστώθηκε ότι είχε έναν όγκο στον εγκέφαλο που του ασκούσε μια πίεση τέτοια που τον παρακινούσε να κάνει κάτι βίαιο, άρα μπορούν να συμβούν όλα. Αφού πρέπει να κλείσουμε, at least one last question from me, Chris. Let's say that Amazon Prime approaches you and say that we're satisfied with the TV series Boss. Do you know Boss? From Michael Connelly, Harry Boss. Yes. Michael Connelly, συγγραφέας που επίσης παλιά εκδόταν από εκδόσεις Bell, έχει ένα ντεντέκτιβ τον Harry Boss που έχει μια πολύ επιτυχημένη σειρά στο Amazon Prime. And they say that we want to acquire rights for Robert Hunter. So this is the check. You must be satisfied. So you just tell us two actors that you would like to play, Robert Hunter and Carlos Garcia.
Okay. You and you. That's it. I get asked that a lot, and I always say the same thing. Nobody, because I don't want to. I come from a superstitious country like Brazil, and there's a thing called jinx. It's like if you start thinking too much about it, it's not going to happen. So I really want it to happen, so I'm not going to think of anybody, no. But I said this yesterday. I get a lot of messages from readers, and one reader said, and she sent a picture, and it's the only guy that was like, actually, that's not a bad idea. I think his name is Viggo Mortensen. Yes, he was in Lord of the Rings, and people say, he'll do a good hunter. I was like, actually, he doesn't, he has a good face. He's very intelligent, so yeah.
Okay, δεν ξέρω αν μάλλον πρέπει να... Η Ιωάννα θα μας πει αν έχουμε χρόνο για άλλο, να μιλήσουμε για τη βραζιλιάνικη κουζίνα.
Guys, υπό άλλες συνθήκες, εγώ περίμενα εδώ πέρα 20 χέρια να σηκώνονται που έχετε Chris Carter εδώ.
Μάλλον καλύφθηκαν όλα.
Ειδικά για εσάς.
Λοιπόν, να ευχαριστήσουμε πάρα πολύ και το φεστιβάλ που μας φιλοξένησε εδώ και όλη αυτή την προσπάθεια. Καταρχάς να ευχηθούμε περαστικά στην κυρία Ευτυχία Γιαννάκη που θα ήταν επίσης στο πάνελ, αλλά αρρώστησε, επίσης συγγραφέα Αστυνομικής Λογοτεχνίας. Μεγάλο ευχαριστώ στην Ιωάννα Πετρίδου που τόσα χρόνια, 4 για την ακρίβεια, διοργανώνει αυτό το φεστιβάλ. Να θυμίσουμε ότι δεν τελειώνει το φεστιβάλ το Σαββατοκύριακο έτσι με τις εκδηλώσεις στο Σεράφειο. Συνεχίζει μέχρι τις 25 του μηνός, που σημαίνει μπείτε στο monofest.gr να δείτε τις υπόλοιπες εκδηλώσεις. Ευχαριστούμε και τις εκδόσεις Bell πάρα πολύ και που μας απίφθηναν την ευγενική πρόσκληση και πρόκληση κιόλας παράλληλα. Και κυρίως που έφερε ένα όνομα του διαμετρήματος Chris Carter. Το ξέρετε ότι δεν είναι εύκολο να έρθουν τέτοια ονόματα στην Ελλάδα. Έτσι. Είμαστε μια μικρή αγορά. Και most of all, we would like to thank you, Chris, for this wonderful presentation.
Okay, and before you guys all go, so I just want to say thank you all for being here, because seriously, I gotta clap. No, seriously, if you were not from you guys, I wouldn't be here. It's like the only reason I am here, the only reason I write books, because I'm just a simple guy who writes his stories. It's like, seriously. And you guys like the crazy shit that comes out of my head. So thank you so much, because if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be here. So thank you.